What's the student voice?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Oh, not student voice. This is my part. That is my part.
Oh, that's your analysis?
Yeah.
Have you got your classroom data?
Yeah.
Any classroom data?
Yes, I do. It's part 2, right?
Have you got part 1, part 2, have you got a complete set?
Yes.
Or-
But I don't have part 3 in it.
This
No,
one?
this one.
No,
not
no,
the
that's right.
latest one.
That's right.
Okay.
I just recorded all of that stuff without even
Well,
knowing
actually,
it. I just recorded you talking to us the whole time.
what?
I forgot to push stop.
What is most useful for you? What is most useful for you guys to see? Like you know the full template. You got part 1, part 2, and the student voice.
Yeah.
So typically we'd start the coaching conversation around there. Your,
That's right, I get lost.
Ah,
what part do you get lost?
So
The
the-
template.
It's part 1.
I've got it here. I've just been with my cousins.
2.
Rerun. That I recognise.
It's been
Part one?
Yeah.
Part 2,
Okay.
part 3. April student voice.
Right. Part 3 student
This
voice.
is the example.
Part 2 is your teacher interactions,
Teacher
Yeah.
interaction.
and part 1 is your collection of evidence that you take
So
it
it's
if
in-
you're
I made
recording.
photos.
I haven't added anything to this.
So you've got one that's got full part 1
Into
as
here.
well.
And so when she just puts your conversation, she talks
This
through
one.
these books.
These are my
She
little
talks to this and
sources. They've
talks to
also
this
got
and
a
talks to
whole
Right.
this.
So it's using the evidence in part 1.
Maybe if we don't have a full one.
Yeah.
And
And then
part,
that's all collated down here as well.
yeah, because I've only done that for one time.
Part 2 and part 3. This is
Yeah,
student
this,
voice.
This is what?
if I just wait for this bit, I'll be away.
This is the same.
The only bit that's throwing
Is it your lesson?
No, I was recording.
Have you got show me any data of your lesson? Anything you've done for you?
My own?
Yeah.
So once I've collated and you can put it together and just easily start with. This big here is for the teachers to work through, so you give them ratings based on what's in here. And then this one here is tables based on.
I think we're at, I don't think we are.
I find it easier when I'm listening to them.
With the children, I think we're.
So last time when you did a session with us, Lorraine,
Yep.
and we went upstairs,
Yes.
so
Yes.
you record,
Yep.
you interview students,
Yes.
come back down,
Yep. So that's all collect. That's
Yep,
all the
that's all
collect
collect.
phase. Yep.
yep. So, and then we came back down and we did the coding part.
Correct. That's
Right.
the coding part.
And so we as coaches go away and do that ready for the
Coaching
conversation.
conversation. Yep.
Yep. And we're taking things that they've said and putting them in part 1.
Yep. Coding them, mapping them to the
Mapping
criteria.
them.
Yep. I got
Okay.
it.
And then we give it to the teacher
Yes.
and they have a look through it ready for the conversation.
Yep.
And they put where they think they're at.
They do
At
the
that
ratings.
point, the ratings.
You got the ratings, eh?
So that's
one, yeah.
before the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then in the conversation, we're talking about, well, this is the evidence that I've seen. You've said that you were here. Can you tell me more about that?
That's what we're going to do today.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I just need the
Perfect.
flow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And so, so keep in mind, collect, code, reflect, coach. So you've done the collect, you've done the code. Eventually,
Reflects.
teachers are going to do the coding.
Yeah.
In the template, that template,
Yeah.
the rating,
Yeah, that one.
yeah. So the rating, right at the top, yeah, yeah, or that. The rating is part of the teacher's reflection, right? They're evaluating themselves. Get the idea?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pull it down.
And then down at the boxes down there, where Bex has shown you, it's reflection. Some schools also add a reflection part. So looking at your evidence, you know, you can add something so they come ready to the coaching conversation. Does that make sense?
Are you
Yeah.
as the teacher rejecting
Yeah.
gaps of thinking, create a
So
curious environment?
when they're setting goals, that's in the coaching
In
part,
conversation, yeah.
and then the reflect comes after that.
They've reflected on the evidence before they come to the coaching conversation.
Right.
So you'll be
Yeah.
successful.
So is this before they come, all of this
Yeah, they
is
look
sort
at
of
that.
filled out, or is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's filled out.
So they can transfer their ratings down
Yeah.
and what might be some possible goals.
Yeah.
they can look at their totals
Yeah.
and reflect on, so you can add some boxes underneath that if you keep this template.
Under here.
Next one down.
This one down.
Yeah. What do you notice of the data above? Any thoughts, implications, you know that, so they're looking at it. And the student voice, they should have a review, a rating to do.
That one there.
Yeah, that one there. That's one of the reasons. So the what you don't want to do is use the coaching conversation for them to reflect on the evidence. They should have already done
Already
it.
reflected.
Yeah. And if you've done a really good job as a staff, you've helped them understand that. Yeah. So for a teacher to be able to reflect on the evidence, they need to understand part one. And they need to understand the theory of action. They need to understand the Northeast graph. They need to understand we're looking for 50% in part 2. They need to understand that the questions that we ask, the first one's about clarity. They need to know all that so they can be really useful, reflective people in the evidence.
Okay.
And so part of that is making sure that when they come to the coaching conversation, there's not this massive power imbalance. So what's coach knows and what's teacher knows. And you need to do that as a system, a school system. It takes way too much time individually to try and teach every teacher. You know that? That's why you have. That's why you're doing
That's
those
why I'm
things.
doing what I'm
Yeah,
doing.
yeah. That's why you're doing what you're doing. Cool. Getting it?
Thank you for my big picture.
No, honestly, we come back to it all the time. Just go back, come back.
Because I started with here's Otter.
Yeah, that's right. Things up to collect.
And you know, I don't know everything, so that helps. Thank you.
Yeah, some schools design an infographic so they understand the process. I saw a school do it and then they overlaid it against their professional growth cycle. Fitted perfectly,
Yeah.
you know. So it's all that sense making stuff, eh? Do it. This one?
Can I use this one? Personal preference?
I'm not quite sure.
We I was Lindsay last time.
Okay.
But it was
Yes.
supposed to be uni Monday and April.
Nancy. Sometimes I'm using a
Is great.
teacher and it's not their data. And I said, do you want to call? Do you want me to call you your
I'm
name?
finding this easier and easier
So
every
I always
time.
got to write the names of the
No, we're
It's,
right down the bottom of that page.
Which one?
Is it right down there? On the what page?
No.
No. Okay, go over. We're there.
Yeah.
Coaching.
That page, what you see your hand there? That page there? No, your right hand. That piece of paper. That's what we're doing.
This is what you need.
This is what we're doing.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
So your job is to watch me and annotate on that document or on your computer what's happened. So you can see the first part is analyse the evidence. Can you see that first box there?
Yeah.
Does it say that? I can't read it from there.
What evidence is here to provide possible explanation?
Yeah.
That's the question.
So part one,
It doesn't actually have it.
I know, it's probably dropped down to the first box there,
Oh, yeah, the bottom of
the bottom of the first page.
Analyze the evidence.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
That dropped down there.
Oh, yeah, there you go,
So box one is done before the coaching conversation, right? So the teachers analyse the evidence, I've had a look at it too. Yeah, so that's not part of this part.
Yeah.
Cool. All of that is what we would call is now systematic. Everyone knows that that's what they do, so
Yeah.
the coaching conversation
so by
comes.
the time you get
Capo, we good?
Yes.
We good to roll? Okay. So we're gonna do. Kia ora, Nancy. Thank you so much for popping in for this coaching conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. You didn't have a choice anyway, did you?
No, but I would love to improve my practice.
That's great.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
you.
So we're just going to start with just checking that you understand why we do it, what it's based on, why all this is happening, what I do, what this coaching conversation's going to also do. So can you just remind me what is this all about? What comes to mind?
When I look at do I need to pretend?
No, you just be you.
Oh.
Just be
So
you.
I was about to go into my
Yeah.
basic mode. Yeah. So for me, relationship first and recording my conversations, doing live session is mainly helping me improve my practice,
Yep.
my learning conversation with my kids.
Mhm.
Yes, for better results.
And so where did we get all this, so you talked about relationships first, where did we get all this information from? What's it all based on?
It is based on Russell Bishop's evidence-based, research-based
Yep.
project.
Yeah,
that is
right.
called A Relationship First.
Yeah?
All right.
What if I said teaching to the northeast, is that ring a
Teaching to
bell?
the northeast.
the
Yes,
yeah.
and I have read the book.
Great.
I've read about it.
So can you tell me what the northeast is? What's the northeast about?
Northeast is where the teacher has a relationship with the student,
Mhm.
where there is a balance between relationship and interaction.
Yep. Direction meaning what?
Direction meaning relationship.
Yeah, look, I'm starting to draw it.
Towards- do
Here you
you want me to?
go. Go for it.
So it goes
Yeah.
that way.
Yeah.
And here is the interaction.
It's the teaching interactions, yeah.
Yep.
So that, yeah,
And that's the relationship.
great. And that's how you get to the northeast.
Yep.
So up here, if we do that, that creates the northeast. Yep.
Yes, it is.
What if I told you there were two other arrows coming back?
Yes, I do know. I don't know. I'm getting a bit nervous today.
Just relax, just relax.
Okay.
You're not supposed to know
It
all.
is. You do know that. It is.
So part one is here. Part one's the relationships, eh?
Yes.
So this is
Part 2 is interaction.
Yeah, you got it.
Part 3
Boom.
is student conversation.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so we call that monitoring.
Monitoring.
But you're right, we use the
I was
student.
looking for that.
Yeah, I know. But you're right, we use the student voices to monitor.
Monitor.
Good. And what are we
And then
monitoring? So we monitor
We are.
if the relationships. So the reason why we monitor is we let the student voice help us look back at whether the relationships and the interactions are working.
Right.
So we're busy doing this, right?
Yep.
So you know the relationship pedagogies. That's part one. Eh?
Part
I
one.
bet you can name them.
There are 5 of them.
Yeah.
There is. Oh my gosh, I'm getting nervous. Sorry.
Yeah. Look, this is how I do it. This is what we do.
They're behind you, I'm just going to say.
Oh yeah.
Prior learning,
Prior learning. Yep, that's over here. So it's prior learning.
feedback, feed
Feed
forward,
Yep. Co-construction. Power
co-construction,
sharing.
power sharing.
And over here is rejecting,
deficit,
caring,
caring,
nurturing, high
high expectations, managing
environment, and knowing the learner.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't remember the last 2. Okay.
So that's all this data up here, remember?
Yes.
See that? That matches that. Got it?
Yep.
Cool. And if you go down to your part 2 data, you've got all those.
Interaction.
See?
Yes.
So there's those, right?
Yeah.
Great.
Wonderful.
See how it matches
Yeah.
the data? And then the northeast data is the student voice. And it tells us is other relationship, yeah, there you go.
Engagement. Yeah.
So it's really important for me as your coach that you understand that the northeast theory of action matches the data we're trying to collect. They're completely collected. Yeah, does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
So this is all Russell Bishop's work. Do you wanna can you tell me anything at a school level that's working with this work as well?
So far.
Yep.
Yes, we have started. We
Mm.
have started as being the leads.
Yeah.
We
I
have
thought so,
started
yeah.
practicing ourselves, coming together, collecting,
Yep.
coding,
Yep.
learning to code
Yeah, great. Yeah. So
and moderate.
Yeah. Nice. Awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So do you have any other questions about how we got this data? Do you understand how it happens?
I think I'm fine at
Yep.
collecting the data.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. I have already practiced my first session
Great.
with my buddy
Yep.
to look at collecting code.
And do you feel like you could answer questions that they would have about why do we collect this? Why do we? If there were any questions, you think you could answer them?
I think I could.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. So just before we start the coaching conversation, just to let you know that my job as the coach is, so you've already had the data, you've reflected on it. So my job as the coach, this is you, Nancy. My job as the coach is to help you think about what you're thinking.
Think about what
What
I'm
you're
thinking.
So you know how we think?
Yeah.
My job is to help you think about how you're thinking about it. Yeah? Get that? So that's my role. And to be clear, that part of my role is also to challenge how you're thinking about it. So respectful challenge will be part of this process.
Excuse me. Yeah.
And what do you think happens at the end? What's the purpose of the coaching conversation? What do we want to get out of it?
It would help me to set up some goals,
Yep.
some achievable goals, and to basically be aware of what I need to improve on.
Okay, nice. Really. Great. Happy to get started?
Yes.
Now we relax and they do the work.
Yes.
So you look at this criteria here. And some of the questions.
So it's important for you to get the understanding and clarify what
Yeah.
they understand already around this.
And why do you
Yeah,
think that
why do you
is?
think
Why do you think that's important?
So
Every single
this actually
coaching conversation.
means something
Yeah,
to them. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm doing a diagnostic straight away.
Yeah.
How much does she know? Is it being done to them? Do they actually understand the process, why it's all based on? That there's a real well-researched theory of action behind this.
It's also great feedback into actually how it's rolling out at the school now.
Correct.
Yeah.
Perfect. And that's why I asked about the school level. What else is happening at the school level that you understand is happening? Yeah, so you can put those questions in.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when we talk about building, what's the word here? Building depth of the relationship, we talk about, when we're doing coaching, it's the depth of the relationship for learning. Please notice, I did not start the coaching conversation. How's your day? How do you think the lesson was? I really like your lesson. I didn't start like that. We're not going. We're not starting with that tone. If she suddenly got upset or was checking her phone and said, "Hey, is everything all right? Can you be here?" No, and then I'll deal with it. But I come in with that really high expectation that you know you've done what you're supposed to do, and this is what we're doing today. We're not going down that over there. And never ever start a coaching conversation about how did you think about the lesson? What did you think about your lesson? That's terrible. That's like I'm putting a big, rabbit hole there for the teacher to dive into, and then the evidence might say completely different, and that teacher feels really dumb at the end of it. Because a teacher can feel really good about a lesson, but the evidence can say, hey, it was a good lesson, but not a lot of learning happened. Yeah? And so we want to not allow that discourse to happen straight away. Okay, what else about that criteria? What other questions have you got? What other questions that I asked that you noted down for your template that you think are useful?
I wrote down the three that you said. Tell me about.
Yep.
Where they come from. And then the TTNE.
Yep.
Can you show me?
Yeah, certainly.
Yep. Why are we doing this? Where did it come from?
Diagnostic. Straight away. And this is really useful.
Do you think we do this every time we start the
Absolutely.
conversation?
Never
Just so
ever take it for granted.
Right.
And if it's the same person, you're down to go their understanding growing. their
Yeah,
knowledge
absolutely.
growing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've learned this.
You might find out another misconception they might have had.
Absolutely.
That's
So,
true.
Yeah. So this is the tikanga.
Mm.
This tikanga, this first thing here keeps us safe. So this is where we're sitting in this conversation. Yeah. This is, I want you to note how much I'm writing down. Like this is really important for me as a coach to keep a record, to keep the discourse of the conversation in front of me. But I have coaches that would actually, you can otter it, but it's still not visual enough. You'd have to go into the otter to show the teacher.
Doing the
This is-
visual as
this
they
is
talk
immediate.
was quite helpful for them to be able to.
Yeah,
add.
totally.
Yeah.
So the first thing I'm going to get you to do is otter your conversation and analyse it, just like we do with student voice. Right? It's your job, is to analyse your practice. But I have a lot of coaches that end up just having lots of copies and a hard copy of this, just those two axes, and going, help me fill it out with me.
Yeah.
And you just pull it out and they do it together. And also what I can do is, this was harder for Mansa, this teacher, to retrieve. Yeah, so I would think about, what am I doing more in there.
I wrote that down too.
Yeah.
The
But
little
that
acronyms.
could relate, but that also could relate to, well, Nat's doing more of that stuff. It's, you know, whatever. There'll be something there. But I'm thinking about that.
But then, of course, if we keep going over every time we start the conversation,
yeah.
it just becomes the habit. Then
Yeah.
we'll just remember it.
It's great data to bring back too, is like as our team and go, okay, across the board,
Correct.
we're finding that this is a misconception.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah,
there needs to be
absolutely.
some work around that.
Yeah. And that's what you should do. So, as coaches, you should always have a huddle and say, what are we learning? And especially if things are timetabled, you know, time 1 data done by week 4, let's get together and talk about what do we need to go over, that sort of stuff. And that's how you can be responsive to teachers' needs, learning needs.
It's almost like you went through the list, you drew on her prior knowledge,
She's getting it.
then you asked for feedback, what do you know,
Yeah.
what's happening in your school, which is the feed forward, and then you sort of co-constructing and what do you think is this going, and asked your opinion. So as you were, I didn't write the questions, I was listening to where you were at in terms of the
Well, your job
interaction.
as a coach is to be the profile in action,
Yeah.
always. Consistently doing that.
So when you mentioned to Becky to record herself, she'll be recording herself as the coach, and then we can use that transcript
Yeah.
and then code it.
Yeah.
And trust is really important. So have you got any questions? She didn't have any questions, but could you answer questions for other people? Like if someone says, why do we use verbatims? Why do we have to record ourselves? You know, all that sort of stuff. It builds trust and transparency.
Yeah.
So some coaches just have FAQs. Why do we record? Why do we use Otter? They just keep designing FAQs for the staff. We did a set of FAQs for this coming up or two about it. Kapai?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next section. So this one here, unpacking the evidence. So you can see that's just one criteria there, but there's a lot in it. So to support practitioners to challenge their prevailing discourse, so meaning what is their dominant discourse, what is the big discourse that they think's happening, and theorize whether it's positive or negative for the learners, right? So what I want you to do in this part of the coaching conversation is I want you to list down the theories you hear the teacher has. Because part of our job as a coach is to recognize the theories. So when I help a teacher think about their thinking, I actually have to note down their thinking, because it's very hard to talk about your thinking and be able to list what you're thinking. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's your job. Yeah. So your job is to list the theories you hear this teacher has. Okay?
Yeah.
Alright, let's go. So, Mancy, what we're going to do now is you're just going to jump back into the evidence and start wherever you want to, whatever jumps out.
Okay.
And you also mentioned, you know, you want some goals and you want to be aware. So did your reflection on the evidence make something pop out for you?
Yes.
Have a look.
I would like to start with part 2.
Mm-hmm. Wow, okay.
These are my conversation,
And there's your coding.
interaction. Yeah, these are my
Have you
coding.
done a total?
Total.
Could
Because I
you-
never did.
That's right, we can do it now.
That's why I never
We'll just
added
do it,
anything.
we'll just
to
now
it.
do it now. Just go straight up to your codes. So can you count how many
The
PLs there are?
are 2, 3, 4.
4. Next one.
Yes.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Teaching.
Yeah, FBs are
FB.
feedback 1.
1. Yep. Feed forward.
And
That's from part 2.
no feed forward.
Forward.
And
Co-construction.
co-construction, just 1.
1.
So that's
Okay.
the,
Yeah.
the interaction.
So do you know the total we're trying to get
So
to
the
in part 2?
total
Do you remember? What percentage we want? Do you remember that? So remember this theory here, this interaction. So relationships, we want kids to experience good relationships all the time.
Yeah.
But if we go back to interactions, this is everything that's discursive. We're looking for 50%.
Yes.
Yeah. So you knew it, eh? You knew it.
Ah,
So if this is a 20-minute lesson,
Yeah.
right, we're only looking for 10 and you've got 19. Oh, sorry, we're looking for 10 and you've
Right.
got, you've got 19.
Yeah.
So you're well
Because
in,
there was 1.
Yeah.
That
Didn't.
wasn't.
so you're well in the discursive zone. So that's important for you to know. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. I
So
didn't know
what-
that's 1.
So what jumps out at you with these numbers?
to open it here.
No, it doesn't matter, you can look at it here.
Oh, just over
Yeah, you
here.
can look at it here. So this is your pattern prior learning.
So
Oh, they were all
I
at the
think-
beginning too, that's interesting, eh? The
Yes.
prior learning ones were all
just
from
all
minute
at the
1 to 4.
beginning.
Yep.
So I have I've done a lot of prior learning
Yep.
before I've started with my lesson for the day.
Mhm.
Then I've done some feedback.
Yep.
But I think I still need to work on looking at giving feedback, plus feed forward,
Okay.
because I have not given any feed forward to my students.
Yep.
Did do some co-construction,
Mhm.
however, it is still just not enough,
Okay.
I believe.
Okay.
Yes.
So see all this power sharing? That's heaps. It's
That
13
is-
power sharing.
Yeah, I was coming to that.
Can you explain what were the kids doing? What was the activity?
Because it was pretty long, so
Yeah.
I can't really remember. But I do know that I was trying to do a lot of power sharing,
Yeah.
where I give my kids enough time and space
Yep.
for them to grow
Yep.
and learn from each other.
Yep.
And
So part of that time the
Even
kids were maybe
leaders.
talking to each other and
talking to each other, helping, supporting their
Supporting, yeah.
buddies, and having the leaders to
Yeah.
lead the lessons,
Right.
and then coming back and sharing with
Mhm.
the whole class.
Yes. Sounds like power sharing to me. So can you explain why there wasn't a lot of feedback and feed forward in your lesson?
I believe I didn't record my whole lesson.
Mm-hmm.
I think I've done that later
Okay.
in the
Yeah.
lesson. Yeah, so I tried to keep it between 20 minutes.
It's fine.
So I don't think I have given enough time
Yeah.
for feed forward or feed back during that time.
So even in was this the first 20 minutes of the lesson?
Just the first 20 minutes.
How long was the lesson? 40?
And I would say 45 minutes.
So if we cut the lesson in half, there was no feedback and feed forward here,
Yeah.
but there was here.
Yes.
So have you got some thinking around why there's none there? Or are you happy that it all happens in the second? Because I'm not assuming that you need more feedback and feed forward.
Right.
So if you feel like you did lots in the lesson, what would tell you whether the kids need feedback or feed forward? What other data do we have?
I think because I do see I've done, of course, one feedback.
Yeah.
Which means if I'm getting enough information from my kids,
Yeah.
how am I evaluating it in my class?
Okay.
So maybe I'm not doing that enough.
Okay.
Because as I said,
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of power sharing where the kids are discussing,
Yeah.
leaders are running the lessons, and then we are sharing it together with the whole
Yeah.
class, which means I'm getting that data.
Yeah. So
However, I'm
you've got
not
lots of
able
data.
to, but I'm not able to do the feedback or feedback forward on it, which means I am missing.
So you say you're not able. Do you mean time?
As in, either I'm forgetting or I'm rushing my lesson.
Okay.
Yeah,
get
I
it.
do need to reflect on that, I
Yeah.
believe.
What are some other possible theories on why you're not giving enough time to all this data that's coming back? You're not being able to evaluate and give feedback and people.
I think there was a time when I was getting distracted
Okay.
with some interruptions, such as there were some visitors.
Yep.
Then obviously we miss on that bit and then move on to the next one.
Yeah, and then move on to
Because
that.
we have shared the answer, so I wouldn't have thought about my feedback, feed forward, if that part is done or not.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about in the second half? How do you explain that you thought you gave more feedback and feed forward there in the second half lesson?
Because maybe there I do remember actually.
Yeah.
That was the part where I was walking around and observing kids learning, and I was able to interact
Right.
with the
okay.
little groups and
Yeah.
able to give my feedback.
Okay. So we're just going to stop there. So I've got 4 theories. What have you guys got? What are the theories?
I forgot what I was listening to.
Time,
Yep, good. Time.
distraction.
Yep, distraction. She was rushing. Distraction, visitors, disruptions. One more.
This is for her feedback.
No, the theories of why.
Theories of
Yeah,
why.
theories of why she didn't give feedback and feed
Yeah.
forward in that first part of the lesson.
Because the kids were doing most of it because they were doing the teaching.
Ah, no.
No?
She described that,
Yeah.
but it's not one of her theories,
Okay.
which is quite interesting that you picked that up. It's not one of her theories, but that's exactly the description.
She's looking for formal feedback when actually you're observing feedback when you know your children can move forward.
No, that's not her theory. She didn't say anything about that.
No,
Can
but
you
she needs to
let
know.
us
No,
know?
no,
Okay.
but we're not to do that. We
Oh, okay. I was interested.
we
what she
don't
thought, yeah.
think for the we don't
So-
think for the teacher.
Time. What's that one?
Distractions.
Distraction and forgetting. So that's the third one. So she's forgetting to do it. She's rushing through the lesson, or she's distracted, or there's disruptions. So in the second half of the lesson, where there was more feedback and feed forward, what were her explanations for that? Why?
She didn't record herself.
I'm making this part really painful.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Because
this
this
is why
is-
right here and it's supposed to be up there.
This is the turning point of the this is the turning point of the
Yeah.
coaching.
Yeah, because this is where you
Exactly.
challenging the
Yeah.
thinking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you are not engaging with their theories, if you're sitting there too busy thinking about something else, or why did you do that,
Mm.
you're never gonna give her the power
Okay.
to think about her thinking, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lesson. It's a muscle you're going to develop as a coach. So she was walking around more.
That muscle's very weak at the moment.
She was, she got to walk around more. She was observing her lesson, and she got to interact with the kids more. Now, if I started to say that to her, do you think she's already solved her problem? So here's what she could do. This is what she was doing with her feedback and feed forward. So the more you let teachers talk and talk and talk,
That's
and then represent it to them, they go, ah,
yeah.
right?
Alright, I'm going and I can go now.
But coaches often interrupt.
Yeah.
They're not busy keeping. You are a researcher, right? In these coaching, you've got to keep pulling it. Oh, so what was happening there? What were the kids doing? Da, 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 da. You keep pulling it out. So what you're asking the teacher to do in this coaching conversation is almost to replay the lesson for themselves. What was happening? What were we doing? So I can almost hear the beginning of the lesson. She was rushing. She was trying to get set up. Then there was distractions, and then she had to fill in more time. You know, you can actually feel it. So your job is to sort of do that reconstruction for them.
Will you start drifting off into solving?
No, we are not solvers. In this coaching
Or-
model, we do
or
not.
why?
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Stop.
You're right, Jax. This is why we train the coaches, because that's their immediate decision. But you've taken all the power away from the teacher
When
straight
you
away.
switch into teacher mode,
Yes.
like with reading,
Yep.
like teachers ask lots of questions to try and get the kids to
You got
where
it.
they think the answer is,
It's right.
Yeah.
You got it. Yeah. You got
rather than actually just let it
Doing
happen.
them.
Just let it happen.
Yeah.
So that stream of consciousness going back. Actually, I do remember. You can see it. You can see it in her face. That's important. It's the big part of the coaching conversation. Not trying to get to this time, get out of the coaching conversation, which we all do. Yeah.
Well, this is the answer I think it is. I want you to get to where
Yeah.
I am.
But remember, when you're doing it with individuals, it's your training for the group situation. So we get you to train with an individual so you can recognize the theories, get all that stuff out, right?
Mhm.
And so in the group situation, the group is going to be doing it as well. Yeah, you'll get there. It's starting to build blocks and blocks and blocks in the theory, okay? So you're going to watch the second part of unpacking the evidence, where we're going to now examine their theories and decide if they're positive or negative for the learners. That's what we're going to do next. I've got the theories out. Yeah. Okay, Nancy, here's your theories. And we are at the moment just talking about first half, second half lesson. It sounds quite different, right? So first half, from the data, there's no feedback or feed forward, but kids are obviously busy. They're obviously working with each other, right? But your theories are, I was forgetting, I was rushing, I was distracted and disrupted. However, in the second half of your lesson, you got to walk around more, observe more learning and interact.
Yeah.
Can you tell me, what do you think was happening between this part of the lesson and that part of the lesson? How come you weren't rushed forgetting in this part of the lesson?
To begin with, I do remember why we were rushing was
Oh, yeah.
because I started the lesson a bit late.
So there's your time again, yeah.
Yes, due to the
Yeah.
just finishing a bit late and kids settling in,
Yeah.
and it took a little extra time for us to start the lesson.
Yeah.
Then we slowly. Oh yes, of course. I was supposed to record myself and get my things sorted at the
Yeah.
same time and making sure. I got
Yeah.
some evidence ready for myself. However, in the second part, my recording wasn't going on.
Oh.
I was feeling more relaxed.
Oh, okay.
And I was more engaged with my class.
Oh.
Yes.
So you think it was being recorded?
That was
Okay.
recording myself.
Yeah, recording
Yeah.
yourself. So if we could park all that, because that's different, right?
Yes.
So in a normal lesson, you're not being recorded. Do you think this is your normal discourse of teaching?
I would say some of the rushing,
Yeah.
yes. Disruption, yes,
Yes.
can happen because that's something I can't predict.
Yeah.
Forgetting might or might not.
Okay.
Depending on the days,
Okay.
There are days when we are super busy to start with.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Depending on
Okay.
what's going around it.
So in the general scheme of things, you still think this could be a really valuable goal for you around feedback and feedback?
Yes, I
Okay.
think I should
Okay,
choose
great.
that as my
Okay.
goal.
So for this lesson, what do you think you should be giving feedback and feed forward on? What would you be doing? What feedback would you be giving?
Like I said, I'm giving my kids to work together,
Yep.
come up with the answers,
Yep.
and we're not literally moving from one question to the other,
Okay.
jumping straight. Taking that time, slowing down, giving feedback, listening to each other, interacting
Okay.
more.
Listen to each other.
Yes, and then moving on.
So if we listen to a transcript again, we'd hear you say, you're giving feedback and feed forward to the groups. Go stop, work together, take your time,
Take your time.
listen to each other, work it out together, then move on. That's the type of feedback.
Yes.
So what was their learning goal? Were they learning to work together?
Learning goal was, I can go back to
So
my
the
goal.
student voice?
Yes.
There you go.
Be able to explain multiplication as repeated addition, explain how multiplication works.
Okay.
So explain the multiplication
Multiplication.
concept to
Yeah.
each
So,
other, which means working,
Working together.
yes,
together.
with their buddies. Yes.
So you would want them to work together and be explaining
Multiplication
Multiplication,
works,
okay.
how it works. Yes.
how it works. Okay. So let's have a look at your student voice and see if they could recall that. So what did student 1 say?
Student 1 says, the question is, what are you learning today?
Yeah.
The child says multiplication with 6 and helping year 5s.
Okay. This one?
Student 2 says timetable. We are learning about 6
Times.
times. Student 3 says we were learning to multiply in 6.
And what was the goal? Explain be able to explain.
Concept.
Yeah.
to each.
So it was more about like the language of multiplication and okay. So out of
Yes.
all those students, which one are you happy with? Which one do you think is clear?
I would say number 1
Okay.
because it's added
Helping.
our
Yes.
six criteria.
And the other 2, not so much.
Yeah, missing information.
yeah.
Yes.
So, just checking,
Mhm.
if they were hearing this, do you think those answers would change?
Yes, definitely.
So if you were going to help yourself not forget, so think of a new lesson,
Yeah.
you want to think about improving your feedback and feed forward. What could you do with your lesson here? What might be, when you've got your learning intention, what could you do to help you not forget to give feedback and feed forward? Do you have this up on the board?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes. I write that on the board.
Kids look at it?
Kids do look at
Yeah.
it. Yes. We go over our intention first,
great.
and then we start with the
Yeah.
lesson. I think I would like to add my own
Yeah.
points to the board, so
board.
that I
Yeah,
would
yeah.
remember,
Yeah.
and I would be able to.
That's
give
easy,
enough
right?
Time. Yes.
Yeah, and you wouldn't forget it's right there.
Yep.
Yeah. How might you involve the students in checking your success criteria?
I would just go over my points too.
Yeah,
To say,
Have
this
I
is
done
what
this?
we are going to
Yeah,
do
yeah.
today.
Have I said this?
Yes,
Have
ticking.
you heard it?
Yeah.
So you
And taking that feedback from
Yeah.
my kids. Yeah.
so you obviously know what feedback to give. It's more about this stuff, eh?
Yes.
It's more about the institutions in your class to make sure you do it
Make sure.
and
Yes.
do it. Okay. And if you wanted to look at this question here, so what?
How do you know
You've
how
been
well
successful.
you're going? And how do you know you will be successful?
Yeah.
So student 1 says, when my teacher gets excited, when she writes the answer on the board.
Yeah, it was a big one.
Because teacher gives a thumbs up,
Oh, yeah.
I know how to count in 6.
And what did you want them to say? What's the success criteria?
Yeah.
Students are able to explain. So you wanted them to say, I can explain multiplication.
Yeah.
So that again, 2A,
Generally,
you can see. Okay.
they are
Okay.
missing information.
So the positive, the impact for students is that this would be clearer, right?
Clearer.
That they would be able to say why we're doing it.
Yes.
Okay, so your goal is to increase,
To increase
Feedback and
and
feed
feed
forward.
forward.
to increase feedback and feed forward, and it's going to be attached to the LI and SC.
Yeah.
And the way you're going to help you do it is you're going to write it on the board,
Write it on the board.
and you're going to ask the students to maybe tick you off or evaluate you. Okay. How long do you think you need to do that? Get that started?
I should give myself 2 weeks.
Yep.
Yep.
So I'll be back in 2 weeks,
2
and I'll
weeks
come
of
in and
practice.
practice. 2 weeks. Okay, we'll stop there. So what did you notice? We're still just there until the very last couple of sentences. We're still there. We were still there in that big box there. What did you notice? What did you write? What questions do you have?
I like that you started off by just saying, okay, Nancy, here are your theories. Like just real transparent from the beginning, and then kind of relate to her what she had said in that previous conversation. And then unpacking and always relating it to the evidence as well.
Always the evidence.
And then at the end, going back to her goal and kind of reminding her, like, what can you do moving forward, leading to the next part.
Because we really established that it would be positive for kids.
Mm.
Don't let a teacher do a goal if it's not positive. If it's just a good idea, they don't. Yeah, it's not. And okay, anyone else? Noticing questions?
I like how you asked her to kind of explain the reasons behind, like, the forgetfulness, like the time.
Yeah.
Like why.
That's their theories. Go
Yeah.
back and explore those theories.
And then getting her to explore herself.
And also going back to what was your learning intention, what was your success
So what would you
criteria?
give feedback and feed forward on?
Yeah.
That's right, yeah. And then it gave me a nice segue straight into the
Yeah.
student voice. Yeah. So that's the monitoring, right? So okay. So if the kids were answering, what would it be? And the evidence should be right there. That's the point of using part 3 as the monitoring. So what evidence have we got to tell us that the kids, boom, it should be there.
But you've also set her up really nicely. So, okay, how long do you think this is going to take? 2 weeks. She's now going away going, I need to be writing this.
Yes,
It's not a big deal
No, it's not a big
because
deal.
it's already come out, it's already surfaced.
Yeah, surfaced, yeah.
So she already has a plan,
Yeah.
she already has action she can put into place. It's now just go do it.
And there's some, and we in the coaching conversation, we've landed something very, very practical. So we call that institutions in Capulcio, right? So what is really institutionalized in your class is writing up the learning success criteria. So use that institution to give your feedback and feed forward. Write the feedback and feed forward there. Yeah. The other thing is what I wanted you to notice is she disclosed that another theory why there was more feedback feed forward in the second half is she took the recording off and she felt less nervous.
I just wanted to be honest because I know we will hear these.
You will
a
hear
lot.
it.
Yeah.
And so do you remember what I did then?
You took it positively.
Yeah, but also you don't want the teacher to use that as a crutch.
Yes.
I wasn't feeling well. So I said,
Left and-
so without all the recording on a normal day,
Oh, yes.
is this still your typical discourse? He says, yeah, I still get rushed, I still forget. So see how you can take it away and say, okay, let's leave that lesson, let's pretend, another lesson. And because what I was trying to do with Nancy is make sure that it's still a really valid goal, not one that she thinks she had to have because she was being recorded. And remember, the data gives the teacher the current discourse of her teaching. Within 2 weeks, she can change this discourse by giving more feedback and feed forward. And that's why we collect the data, that the teacher has to understand this is not a life sentence. This is something that's going to get changed really quickly and they feel capable of doing. So that's important that you really validate that that's still a good goal and you've tested it. So what will it mean for kids? Great impact, got the data.
And then when we come back the next time,
Yep.
we take that
Yep.
results and
Yep.
evaluate.
And what we need to do is even just do part 2 data. I can just do the frequency of feedback and feed forward, or I could look at her board and telemark every time she gives feedback. Go and interview the kids and go, confirmed, feedback and feed forward is working. You know, done. Move on to something else. Yeah. Can I also just let you know, did you notice how often she used my notes? The way she was pointing at them?
Yes.
This gives, you know, I watch people use fancy digital things all the time, but it's right here, it's immediate. She can draw it and it's a reference. We can talk about it here. Even just cutting that lesson in the middle, we're talking this part. Hey, it's,
Yeah,
just
it's
helps
really
you.
helpful, yes.
I work with so many schools that want to come up with something more fancy, and I go, I just still do this. And literally, rip it off and can give it to a teacher if I wanted, if I was tidier. But really helpful, this sort of stuff.
It's a working document, isn't it?
It's a working document, yeah.
I mean, it's the same thing we do. If you grab some kids who are struggling with maths, come to board.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's draw it, let's write
Let's
it,
do
let's
it, get
point
it
to
out
it,
of your head.
where is it
Yeah,
going?
you got it.
So treat it as the same thing.
See the treaters, yeah. So, you've been through the whole cycle, establishing that we are starting this coaching conversation on even information. You know, if there's, you know, if there's a big gap between someone's understanding, I wouldn't even go into the evidence. I go, okay, we're going to start with the Northeast Swa. This is what it's all based on. Let's go back there. But you don't, you know, you want the school to take care of that. That's why you release, that's why you do all that stuff with the school, you know. But you'll get a teacher that goes, I know we've done it, but I don't really listen. Okay, let's start again. You know, just always go to the point of need, yeah? And so at the end, you can, if you want to, you can literally help the teacher fill in a Capilcio plan. So remember, part 3 is Capilcio and it's monitoring. So she's got a goal, she's got a pedagogy, she's got an institution, how is she going to lecture? You could literally go, if you want to introduce that as part of the, some schools just will have a pedagogical goal, but we really want to see that it's from the profile.
Can I just go
Yep.
to that Japulsio? So you've given her a goal. focus on
She's
feedback,
identified her
feedback.
goal.
Yep, she's, the institutions to change what she's doing in the classroom,
Yep.
to put
So
the,
that's writing it up
yep.
on the
No,
board,
that,
right?
that's her institution, yeah.
What was the pedagogy?
Feedback, feed forward.
Okay, so that's the goal of the feedback feed forward. The leadership,
To
you
help.
are steering, what would that look like for children?
Yeah, so we could say, how might you lead that, involve other kids to do it? How could you lead it for yourself? So some of the leadership might be, I really want to, this mightn't be Mancy, I really want to get my head around what's the difference between feedback and feed forward? So I said, well, maybe you need to jump into a,
So in this context, yes.
Yeah. So leading might be leading her own learning.
Yeah.
So maybe you need to go, I'll give you a reading, or here's a video, you know, that sort of stuff. Or, Nat's done at that staff meeting, we go and open that.
The evidence is what she's come to the table with,
But also the next evidence.
okay, to follow up
Progress.
on the goal.
So Nancy, what would be, if we knew this was having an impact, what evidence would change here? Can you tell me?
Of course, there will be more feedback and feed
Great.
forward.
In your coding, yeah,
Yes, and my coding.
and your student voice.
And
or-
even my student voice, I would be able to say more around success criteria and
the
the
kids could
learning
be more
intention.
accurate.
They will be able to,
Yeah.
vocally share.
Okay. And what is, was spread,
No,
because we have only got that one lesson, or?
no,
so-
spread means that if she, if we got to the point where we said, hey, could this help you in other, because we're talking about maths, could this help you in other areas? Yeah, man, I really need to do this for Broome, and she's spreading the practice.
Okay,
Spread could also mean that after Nancy's really nailed it, she goes, hey, do you want to share it with your team? And you're spreading it across your team, spreading it across the school. This is how I did it.
and the ownership is that she knows she's got that enthusiasm to go out and do it.
No, the ownership is that she's taking responsibility for her actions.
Okay, through the whole talk, she was, I
Yeah.
need to.
Well,
What I need to do.
ownership will tell next time Ajax, has she done it? Has she taken ownership? Has she gone and done it? Or has she waited for me to come along and say, hey Nancy, hey, you know, that sort of stuff?
So you don't necessarily have to meet each and every one of these.
So Compulsio is a smart tool, and it's a cascading part smart tool. You can't do one and the other and all that sort of stuff, right? So if you started with a goal, let's just start with a goal. Yeah, so goes like this.
Yeah.
It starts with a goal, but you don't have the pedagogy to meet your goal. So Nancy could not meet her goal with increasing feedback feed forward if she didn't understand the pedagogy of feedback and feed
And
forward.
that's when you would go through that again.
Great, yeah.
And then
Right.
you just stop there.
So stop where?
At-
Pedagogy?
Yeah.
No, because she could have the goal and she could have the pedagogy, but she's got no institution to uphold the pedagogy and meet her goal. So she could have a goal, she could learn about feedback and feed forward, but she goes to the classroom and still doesn't do it
Okay.
because she's got no mechanism to help her remember to do it.
But within that first conversation, if she didn't understand teaching to the northeast,
Yeah.
the pedagogy, you would stop there.
Oh yes, sorry,
Just
yes.
stop there.
Yes, sorry, yes.
Yeah, and it's okay, well, your homework, or what do you think
Yeah.
your next goal is?
Yeah.
To go and read up and,
Yeah.
and work your way until they.
That's it.
Okay.
And we won't go into this.
Oh no. If this is the coaching conversation and I see that you've got this massive gap between feedback and feed forward, we're going to go there
Okay.
and then come back and do that. But again, you've already got a spread execution for that, and that's taking sessions on each part of the profile, and that should be their reference point. And if they need more, fine, just add a video from John Hattie, add them, just keep adding. Yeah. So Compulsio, you as a team could use Compulsio. Our goal is to create Northeast teachers. Our pedagogy is to learn, we're going to have an institution of staff. You can actually arrange your whole school around Compulsio. Just got to do a bit of deeper reading around Compulsio and how it works. Yeah. And that's why in the tool we don't try and do Compulsio, we just do student voice. That'd be too much to try and get Compulsio done, and but out of it becomes what we call a Compulsio plan. But it's up to you if you want to start using that language in your school. It's up to you. Some schools just call it an activation plan. This is how we're activating. Some people now call it their professional growth, cycle.
Well, it covers all your bases, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
And if you had to put a proposal to the board for a particular area, then that covers everything.
Yeah,
They would want to ask you.
Yeah.
Grow does, but doesn't have the accountability
Yeah.
at the end of it.
But I think down the track, I think that student voice thing is really important because a lot of teachers don't use it.
Yeah.
It's not their evidence. They're not going back to their clientele
Yeah.
for is this working for you. So to put that focus on initially is I think is a really powerful thing for teachers to get before we jump into processes and procedures, institutions.
We won't be doing this for.
And sometimes you have to really help the staff explore whether they really think student voice is legitimate. They like to dismiss it a lot. And I said, well, hang on, why can't every student tell me what they're learning today? It's not because their ears are puckaroo, it's because I haven't made it clear. And so that ownership is the teacher taking responsibility, not blaming the kids. I can change it.
So rejecting deficit thinking.
Is that going or stopping?
Do you want to stop it?
Oh, it's still going.
How do I push record?
This is